Senator Klobuchar and Senator Fisher, respectively, the chairwoman and ranking member of the Senate Rules Committee in the last Congress. For more than a year, the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, led by Senator Klobuchar, put tremendous effort into planning, organizing a traditional ceremony on the west front of the Capitol. As you know, those plans had to be set aside at the very last minute because of the bitter cold for the more intimate gathering inside the rotunda that we witnessed on Monday. Thanks to her efforts and without missing a beat, our nation's tradition of peacefully transferring power continued, and the president was sworn in on the 20th of January as required by the Constitution. Many thanks to Senator Klobuchar, Senator Fisher, and the staff for successfully organizing and hosting one of our nation's most important civic traditions. I would also like to congratulate Senator Klobuchar on becoming the ranking member of our committee. I've worked closely with her over the years and look forward to continuing our partnership. I visited Minnesota with Senator Klobuchar in the spring of 2023 and met with farmers of the Gopher State in similarly cold weather that we're experiencing today, only it was in May. I greatly enjoyed the opportunity to hear those farm families. I look forward to hosting her in Arkansas in the not too distant future. I would like to welcome the committee's members. For those returning, thank you for your continuing service. For our 4 new members, Senator Slotkin, Schiff, Moran, and Justice, thank you for choosing to serve on the committee. I look forward to working with you and learning more about what is important to you and your states. Our committee, established in 1825, is one of the oldest in the Senate. Our hearing room, which we will use in the future, is unique in that we don't have a dais but a table. We sit across from each other, not away from each other, symbolic and practical. I look forward to convening many meetings in Russell 328 in the coming years for us to work together and address the concerns of our farmers and ranchers and rural communities and those needing assistance. As the chairman, my door is open to every member of this committee. The fundamental purpose of our committee is to solve problems and help our citizens. I welcome you to share your ideas, concerns, and your solutions. Agriculture is not partisan. We all care about our nation's farmers and ranchers. The state of rural America concerns us all. We all believe that no American should be hungry. I intend for this committee to be highly productive in the 119th Congress. Working together this year, we will pass a farm bill that will meet the needs of our farmers for the day and for the future. This morning, we can meet to consider the nomination of Brooke Leslie Rollins of Texas to be the Secretary of Agriculture. Ms. Rollins, congratulations to you on your nomination. You've been nominated at a very challenging time for America's farmers. The cost for fuel, seed, and fertilizer remain high. Interest rates are also very high and continue to be high. Farm gate prices are low. Farmers everywhere are losing money on every acre they cultivate, while farmers in certain parts of the country are losing hundreds of dollars per acre. Thankfully, Congress responded at the end of last year and provided a bridge to help ensure producers could plant again this year. Delivering this economic assistance to our farmers will be one of the major tasks you will be faced as Secretary. But as I mentioned, this was only a bridge. It was across the Senate and with you to help create a farm bill that meets the realities of modern day agriculture. Beyond the economic strains our farmers and ranchers feel, I believe our producers want an improved relationship with USDA. They want to know USDA has their back and is helping them with the tools and support needed to successfully and profitably farm and ranch, rather than coercing them into production practices that don't work for their operations. They want new markets and new opportunities to sell what they produce. They want conservation programs to help with the issues they are facing on their farms. They want rural communities to have the infrastructure and the resources for a high quality of life. USDA, with the right leadership, can do all of these things. Beyond agriculture production, USDA is land land manager, research institution, food regulator, protector of animal health, and rural lender. There's very little USDA doesn't touch or have an impact on. All of these resources and abilities can be used to improve the quality of life, not only in rural America, but all of America. As I met and talked with Ms. Rollins, it is clear the needs of American farmers, ranchers, and rural communities will be her focus. It's also clear that she has the relationships across the new administration and an understanding of the processes in which decisions are made in the executive branch to best position our producers for success. I look forward to seeing her bring her considerable skills and her abilities to bear at USDA for the benefit of our farmers, ranchers, and rural communities. I now recognize Ranking Member Klobuchar for her opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and we welcome you, Ms. Rollins. Thank you, your entire family that seems to take up like 10 rows, as well as the FFA, your FFA officers. It's kind of an incredible group there, and your ag teacher. I want to thank Chairman Bozeman for holding this important nomination hearing. Thank you to our colleagues from Texas who are here. Senator Bozeman and I have been friends and colleagues for years, and as you noted, you came to visit my state. We didn't consider that cold that day in May. We considered it a beach day with a touch of snow. And I want to thank you for visiting with our farmers and our ranchers and our conservation and nutrition leaders in our state. I also look forward to working with you to be a voice for rural America. All of our colleagues on this committee are incredible voices for rural America. I'm really excited. I've told our Democratic leaders on this committee how excited I am about the people that are on this committee, and I believe we're going to work really well together. I want to mention our friend and colleague Senator Stabenow for her 14 years of leadership of this committee. She's now retired from this committee, but whether it was passing farm bills, standing up for conservation programs, or making sure there was food on the table, she was always at the forefront of the fight. I'd like to thank all of our returning members, as well as the new senators on the committee that Senator Bozeman mentioned, Senator Schiff and Senator Slotkin. They've been already really strong participants in all of these discussions we've been having, and Senator Moran, as well as Senator Justice. Thank you. We're looking forward to continuing the strong tradition of bipartisanship. Ms. Rollins, again, thank you for being here. I enjoyed our previous discussions, and I look forward to the hearing today and hearing from you about your plans for the future. I know you and your family. I just talked to your mom about it. Have had a farm in Minnesota for years, and I hope you will be visiting our state again soon. As you know, the Secretary of Agriculture is a voice for rural America within the President's cabinet. If rural America is going to prosper, it will be important to have a secretary who will address the challenges facing farmers and rural families, who sees the importance of nutrition and conservation, and who will work with us on a strong bipartisan farm bill. We on this committee have made progress on so many fronts, from strengthening crop insurance to improving voluntary conservation programs, the good work we have done on biofuels across the aisle. But there are still numerous challenges facing America: avian flu, struggling dairy producers, flooding, droughts, wildfires, as Senator Schiff well knows, scarcity at food shelves, and the lack of housing, childcare, and healthcare facilities in rural America. As we discussed, I have concerns about some of the proposed policies from the administration, and while I have always supported targeted tariffs, I'm concerned that major across-the-board tariff increases could hurt rural America. I hope that if confirmed, that Ms. Rollins will make the case for sensible trade policy that will work for our farmers and rural America. We also need leaders of the USDA that believe in science and research, which is so critical right now. I know many of our members will be asking on that front. As a ranking member of this committee, I'm committed to doing what's right for rural America, which means finding common ground when we can, but standing our ground where we must. In Minnesota, our prosperity depends on the strength and vitality of our rural community. Farmers and livestock producers need access to safety net programs, which with weather conditions threatening all the time, input costs and the like. And rural businesses can't spur innovation and create jobs without an available workforce, which I think is going to be an issue we'll be confronting this year, as well as childcare, healthcare, housing, and broadband. I know this is true not just for me, but for all members of this committee. And I look forward to the hearing today and to learning more about, Ms. Rollins, your plans for the Department of Agriculture. Thank you very much, and thank you to our colleagues.
Today we have been joined by our colleagues from Texas to introduce our nominee. Thank you all for being here. Senator Cornyn, will you please proceed?
Thank you, Chairman Bozeman and Ranking Member Klobuchar, members of the Agriculture Committee. I'm delighted to be here along with my colleague, Senator Cruz, to introduce our friend, Brooke Rollins, to be the next Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This one is a no-brainer. Everybody who knows Brooke Rollins loves Brooke Rollins, and you will too, once you get to know her. I first met Brooke years ago when serving in state government in Texas, but it was when she was the policy director for then Governor Rick Perry that I began to see what a truly dedicated public servant she was and still is. Since this time, as you know, from reading her resume, you know she's had quite an impressive career, and so I'm delighted to be here today to help introduce her. She was born and raised, as was pointed out, in Glen Rose, Texas. For those of you who haven't pulled out your map to see where that is, it's about an hour southwest of Fort Worth. And so she brings firsthand experience of the often difficult realities of farm life into the Department of Agriculture. She graduated from Texas A&M School of Agriculture, Leadership, Education, and Communications. I thought I heard a whoop somewhere. Texas is home to nearly 230,000 farms and ranches, more than any other state in the country. And 1 in every 7 Texans works in an agriculture-related job. This is critical to our state and to the nation, as has been pointed out. Brooke's agricultural roots will serve her well as Secretary of Agriculture to give farmers and producers from the Lone Star State and across the country a clarion voice when it comes to President Trump's cabinet. But Ms. Rollins' credentials go way beyond the day-to-day intricacies of farming. She's also a University of Texas Law School graduate and a policy wonk. She will confess to that during this hearing today. And that's demonstrated by her years of service as general counsel to Governor Perry and her 15 years leading one of Texas's premier policy institutes, the Texas Public Policy Foundation. And it was during President Trump's first administration she served as director of the Domestic Policy Council. Many of us worked with her closely there, where she assisted Jared Kushner in that job. And you know that position is responsible for coordinating the domestic policy making of the White House and ensuring that decisions and programs are consistent with the president's goals and overseeing the implementation of the president's domestic policy agenda. Since her time in the first Trump administration, Brooke has served as president and CEO of America First Public Policy Institute, where she helped craft the agenda for President Trump's second term. I've worked with Brooke in a number of roles and seen her as she's helped advance bipartisan legislation, both in Austin and here in the nation's capital. And I know she will bring that experience and that temperament to her job at USDA. That's a good thing because she has her job cut out for her. First, Congress has failed to pass the 5-year farm bill, and I know that's priority number 1 for this committee. So she'll have an opportunity to work with each of you to shape this critical legislation that farmers and ranchers across the country depend on. And as has been alluded, I think, by Senator Klobuchar, that the disasters that we've experienced throughout the country have hit farm country particularly hard. And I know she will work hard with you and all of us to make sure we provide an essential lifeline to our farmers and ranchers. As Coach Tuberville knows, the Texas A&M football team, of which Brooke is a devoted fan, says their student body is the 12th man who propels them to victory. I know Brooke is honored to step up now and become the 12th woman for the farmers and ranchers of America. I'm looking forward to working with her and with all of you to pass a farm bill and put farmers back where they deserve to be, and that is first and foremost in our policy deliberations. And I have no doubt that Brooke is exactly the person for the job to implement President Trump's agenda at USDA. So it's my honor to be here with all of you and her family and multitude of friends. Even her high school ag teacher is here. Everybody who knows Brooke loves Brooke, and I know you will too as you get to know her. So thank you for allowing me to be here and say a few words by way of introduction.
Thank you, Senator Cornyn. Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Chairman Boatman. Thank you, Ranking Member Klobuchar, members of the committee. Let me start by saying what Senator Cornyn said a minute ago is absolutely right. This is a no-brainer. Brooke Rollins as a nominee to be Secretary of Agriculture is an extraordinary choice. And I have absolute confidence that every member of this committee is going to be very, very happy working with her in that role in the next 4 years. I've been friends with Brooke for over 2 decades. From when she was policy director for then Governor Rick Perry, to when she led the Texas Public Policy Foundation, which became the preeminent free market state foundation in the country, to when she came to Washington to join President Trump to lead the Domestic Policy Council, to her more recent years leading the America First Policy Institute. At every stage, she's proven herself to be a leader. She's proven herself to be an innovative policy thinker. And she's proven herself able to bring people together to accomplish major objectives. All of those skills will serve her and the farmers and ranchers of America exceptionally well. To know Brooke is to know she's an Aggie. And all Aggies are members of a cult, which I say from a place of deep love. But I am convinced if you were to cut Brooke's hand right here, it would not bleed red, but it would bleed maroon onto this table. She brings that ferocity to everything she does. She brings creativity. She brings joy. Brooke is always smiling. And she's smiling because she has a vision of where to take us. She grew up in a small agricultural community, Glen Rose, Texas. Her summers were spent at her family's Minnesota farm, helping with the corn, potato, and soybean crops. And I have to say, Brooke, the level of foresight to kiss up to the ranking member as a young child is impressive. Her experiences in barrel racing, and by the way, for everyone who knows barrel racers, yes, they're crazy, and raising livestock for 4-H and Future Farmers of America installed in her a profound appreciation for the challenges and rewards of life in agriculture. Farmers and ranchers in America right now are facing extraordinary challenges. Challenges that are putting their livelihood at risk, putting their families at risk, putting the ability to provide food and fiber and clothing for the American people at genuine risk. The farmers and ranchers of this nation, the farmers and ranchers in the great state of Texas, are looking to this committee for leadership. And they're looking to the next Secretary of Agriculture for leadership. In Texas and South Texas, we face historic droughts, and yet our neighbor, the nation of Mexico, is in brazen violation of the 1944 water treaty that obligates it to provide water each year to the people of South Texas. I have no doubt that soon-to-be Secretary Rollins will be a ferocious advocate for those South Texas farmers, just as she is a ferocious advocate for farmers and ranchers in every one of your states and all across the country. She's going to be an extraordinary and even an historic Secretary of Agriculture. And I'm proud to join John Cornyn in supporting my friend Brooke Rollins, and I encourage you to do the same.
Thank you, Senator Cruz. Again, thank you, Senator Corner, for being here. I'd now like to recognize our nominee, Senator Brooke Rollins, to introduce some of our guests before I administer the oath, and she gives her opening statement.
Good morning, everyone. What a joy to be here, and wow, a little surreal and slightly overwhelming. The two gentlemen that were sitting up here, whom I've known, as they mentioned, for a long time, so I want to thank them. A few guests, and I appreciate Senator Bozeman the opportunity to introduce them. My awesome mom right here, whose new issue that all of you know, the oldest freshman legislator in Texas history, Helen Kerwin, raised my sisters and me by herself in that small town, and PFAS is her big issue. So I know a lot of you are certainly concerned with that. My incredible husband, Mark Rollins, we met the first week of our freshman year at Texas A&M, Senator Tuberville, in 1990, 35 years ago. And our four incredible children, Luke, Jake, Anna, and Lily, are here with me. Luke is the oldest. Luke, raise your hand. Listen to your mother. Very good. He is a sophomore at Texas A&M University in the Corps of Cadets, and in fact, left College Station at 1:30 last night, 1:30 a.m. to drive all night, catch a flight in Dallas, and be here this morning. So especially grateful to him and my other incredible children. Even though they're all teenagers, Luke's 20, it has been the joy and most important part of my life being their mom. So what a joy to have them. My sister, Ann Blunser, my sister, Helen Hubert, Eliza, my niece, they're all here. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law, Tim and Elizabeth Yagi. My incredible ag teacher, who I'd like to stand up. This is Mr. Gary Rosenbush, who put up with a lot from this FFA'er. I've often said that the Future Farmers of America changed my life and put me on a course that, frankly, leads me to today. So Mr. Rosenbush was a big part of that. I also want to recognize, a lot of people know that I take great pride in my short, but I think very successful life as a Little League softball coach. So my daughter Lily was the catcher on the team, but most of the rest of the team also flew in last night. The hot tamales, everyone, from Texas are here. Thank you guys for being here. My 1990-1991 state FFA officer team from all parts of Texas. There were 10 of us. The other 9 all came. Ag teachers, insurance agents, workers of the land, they're all here. And so what a joy to have my state FFA officer team here as well. If y'all want to stand, what an incredible inspiration. I know, Senator, I could go on and on. I promise I'm going to cut this short, but one other person, Pastor Jensen Franklin of Georgia, who has been such an inspiration to me, flew all the way in from Free Chapel in Georgia to pray with my family and I this morning. So Pastor Franklin, I want to thank you as well. One of the great pastors of our time. Pastor, thank you. I have so many Texas friends, other family that are here, but I'll wrap it there and just say what an incredible honor to have all of them behind me today.
No, that's great. That's wonderful. Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the statement that you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Do you agree that if confirmed, you will respond to requests to appear and testify before any duly constituted committee of the Senate?
I do.
Again, congratulations on your nomination. You can have a seat, and you're recognized for 5 minutes. to give your opening statement.
Thank you. Chairman Bozeman, Ranking Member Klobuchar, and distinguished members of this committee. First, my thanks to President Donald Trump for his faith in me to lead the United States Department of Agriculture. His confidence fuels my determination to deliver. I also want to thank my dear friends and fellow Texan Senator John Cornyn and Senator Ted Cruz so graciously introducing me to this committee. I also obviously want to extend my sincere thanks to all of you, the United States Senate Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry, for your careful consideration of my nomination. And understand, and perhaps most importantly, I want to thank and so overwhelmed at the honor to potentially serve the men and women who daily, without pause or complaint, provide our great nation and the world with the best food, fiber, and fuel. Throughout the past several weeks, I have met or spoken with every Republican and Democrat senator on this committee, and I appreciate your insights, your concerns, and your very wise counsel. It is clear we all agree that farmers and ranchers are the cornerstone of our nation's communities, and I commit to you today that if confirmed, I will do everything in my ability to make sure our farmers, ranchers, and rural communities thrive. I also want to thank the many senators and representatives on Capitol Hill with whom I've had the incredible opportunity to work with these last 2 decades during my career in public policy. In my time first with Governor Rick Perry, then leading the Texas Public Policy Foundation, in my various roles in the Trump administration, the first one, and since 2021 in my role founding and leading the America First Policy Institute. Each of you cares deeply about the American people whom we all serve, and I promise my work will reflect that commitment. Growing up in the small ag town of Glen Rose, Texas, y'all heard this, population then 1,200 people, is where my story begins. Then my world revolved around the future farmers of America, 4-H, and the endless cycle of baling hay, livestock shows, and rodeos that still today constitute the calendar of our small corner of Texas. That experience sent me to Texas A&M on an agriculture scholarship, where I studied and majored in ag leadership and development, then on to the University of Texas Law School, where I graduated with honors and performed a federal judicial clerkship. And then, of course, to helm the policy shop of Texas Governor Rick Perry. It was there that I had my first direct leadership role in big state ag policy. I had been in office serving Governor Rick Perry for 2+ years when I received a call. A small think tank of 2 or 3 staffers in San Antonio asked if I would be interested in being their new leader. And I answered that call as well, thinking as that my husband and I built our family, that would be helpful and a good potential opportunity to be a great mom, but also continue the fight for Texas. At TPPF, over the next 15 years, we fundamentally redefined the mission of a think tank from just having ideas or writing about them in white papers to actually effectually changing policy for the people of our state. We engaged strongly during those 15 years with Texas rural and small town communities, giving them a voice in government that was too often denied. In short, we changed the game in Texas. Changing the game is exactly why I accepted the invitation to join President Trump's first administration at the beginning of 2018. Everything that we had sought to do in Texas those last decades to make policy for real change, for real Texans, was being done in the first Trump administration, and I was so honored and excited to be part of it. I joined first to the White House Office of American Innovation as its leader. I then soon became the assistant to the president in addition on strategic initiatives, and eventually added the role of the director of the Domestic Policy Council. In January 2021, exactly 4 years ago, we understood that President Trump's second term agenda would be delayed, so I had the privilege and the idea of establishing yet another institution of policy leadership, and the America First Policy Institute was born. I currently serve as the president and CEO there. Thanks to President Trump and to all of you, I hope to have the opportunity to bring that level of passion and commitment commitment to the USDA. I need not tell you, of all people, that this is surpassingly important, because agriculture is surpassingly important to us as a nation. All Americans are important, but the farmer, the worker of the land who feeds all the others, is amongst the most notable. Thomas Jefferson wrote that agriculture is our wisest pursuit because it will, excuse me, I don't want to get Thomas Jefferson's quote wrong. Can't misquote Thomas Jefferson, because it will, in the end, contribute most to real wealth, good morals, and happiness. And his wisdom holds true today. I fully recognize that if I am confirmed, I am stepping into the role during one of the most economically challenging times in American agriculture history. With that in mind, I want to share with you as I close my top priorities for day one, and then perhaps a longer-term priority. First, we must ensure that the disaster and economic assistance authorized by Congress is deployed as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Second, we must work with the great men and women of USDA, the stakeholder communities, and state leaders, my deep background in state policy, to immediately and comprehensively get a handle on the state of animal disease outbreaks. Third, we must immediately begin to modernize, realign, rethink the United States Department of Agriculture, responding to the clear needs and the desires of the American people as set forth so well by the President of the United States over this last historic week. And finally, and longer term, we understand that serving all American agriculture and all the American people means ensuring that our rural communities are equipped and supported to prosper not just today, but tomorrow and the day after that and the many tomorrows to come. This includes exploring improvements to our rural development programs, demanding strong and steady domestic and export markets for our beautiful agriculture bounty, eliminating burdensome and costly regulations that hamper innovation, ensuring our nutrition programs are effective and efficient, and putting in the work to make sure we have a healthy and prepared next generation of farmers, ranchers, entrepreneurs, innovators, and indeed all Americans. This is what we need for the next century of American greatness. These are just four of my top priorities. Beyond these, I am dedicated and committed to providing all of you with the timely technical assistance that we will need to ensure that we have a farm bill that moves forward. My aim, after all, is the same as yours, the same that brought you to the Senate, the same that brought Donald J. Trump to the presidency again, and that is to serve the people in this great country. Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Ranking Member Klobuchar.
Thank you, and for your opening statement. As is customary, my colleagues and I would like to ask you some questions. Each senator will have 7 minutes to ask questions during this first round. If we need an additional round, that will be 5 minutes. Before I ask my questions, I'd like to add a number of letters in support of Ms. Rollins' nomination into the record. In particular, I would like to highlight one letter signed by the Farm Bureau, the Farmers Union, the National Council of Farmers Cooperatives, and more than 400 other agricultural organizations supporting Ms. Rollins' nomination. Without objection, so ordered. In your written statement, again, you alluded to and the testimony that you just provided, you talked about your focus, some of the things you want to. Can you expand on that a little bit more? The first 100 days, what can we expect?
I think the first 100 days, sir, if I am so fortunate to be confirmed, will be a fast and furious effort to ensure that we move that economic aid out. In fact, when I got the call from the president about this particular position, it was the honor of a lifetime to accept that call and to accept the nomination. But then about 5 minutes later, I started thinking about, okay, what do I do to make this successful and perhaps the best, most effective, efficient United States Department of Agriculture in history since President Lincoln first launched this department. The aid to the farmers, top priority. Animal disease, top priority. Ensuring that we begin to move toward President Trump's vision. I work for him. I am his cabinet member, but also working alongside all of you. And so many of the conversations that we all had over the last 4 to 6 weeks from both sides of the aisle, from both Republicans and Democrats, were very encouraging to me. I believe that there is an opportunity, while there will be moments that there will also be many, many moments of agreement. So Chairman Bozeman, my thought is that we get in there, and anyone that knows me and that has worked with me over the course of all these years know that excellence is not only the goal, but the expectation that we move with rapid speed to ensure it gets done, that we work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for our constituents, which is American agriculture, and that at the end of the day, this country and that community is thriving in a way perhaps they never have before because of the work and the foresight and the goals and the vision that I think is so important.
Good. I appreciate you on several occasions bringing up the disaster assistance. This committee worked in a very bipartisan way to get that done. It was a big effort, and it took a lot of work, and again, we were able to get that done in a very bipartisan way. But that's what we've heard about, from our farmers now is thank you for doing it, but we desperately need it so that we can talk to our bankers and try and figure things out from this last year where most farmers lost a lot of money, their path forward. So again, that I think is music to all of our ears. Trade is vitally important to American agriculture. Our abundant yields and high-quality crops help feed the world. Can you please describe how the President's trade agenda will prioritize the needs of American farmers and ranchers? If our trading partners unfairly target U.S. agriculture producers, how will the administration minimize the impact to our producers?
Thank you, Senator, and I'm actually glad this is at the top of the next few hours because I think it is on the mind of every member of this committee and perhaps every member of the ag community. This great nation. The first thing I think that's important to note is in the last few years, we have almost a $45 billion trade deficit for our ag products. So a key priority will be expanding access to these markets across the country. We've already been sort of vision boarding, not to get ahead of the process, but I want to make sure I'm able to hit the ground running. How it is we begin to immediately effectuate bringing down that $45 billion trade deficit. And it's just at 42% in the last year. There is a deep recognition that corn prices are down 35% just in the last year as well, past 2 years, I'm sorry, and that in fact our farmers are hurting. Regarding the President's tariff agenda, I think it probably comes as no surprise to anyone sitting in this room that he believes it is a very important tool in his toolkit to continue or bring America back to the forefront of the world and to ensure that we have a thriving economy. But just as he did and we did in the first administration, he also understands the potential devastating impact to our farmers and our ranchers. And during that time, I have spoken with Secretary Perdue a few times on how that was managed and to that team, so I fully understand and that we are prepared to execute something similar if approved, if confirmed, but also working with the White House to ensure that we can close those holes for our farmers and ranchers moving forward under any sort of tariff execution in the next coming days and the next few years, and that will be a top priority of mine.
Very good. Hunger is an issue that we continue to face. My home state of Arkansas has the highest rate of food insecurity in the nation. At USDA, you will be responsible for leading 16 nutrition programs that assist 1 in 4 Americans. These programs make up the vast majority of the spending at the department. In spite of these programs, which have grown substantially over the last 20 years, the national foods insecurity rate has hovered around 12% since 2001, even during times of economic prosperity. The goal of these programs is to provide temporary assistance to those in need, but the focus on moving families to a place of economic independence has been lost. Will you commit to reviewing these programs to ensure they help incentivize Americans to secure steady employment while still being able to trust that their federal supplemental assistance can be relied on in times of need?
Senator, I so appreciate your concern and focus on this incredibly important program. I think sometimes people on our side of the aisle are framed as those that don't care as much about the kids or those who are hurting or those from disadvantaged communities. I know I have spent my career working to ensure that every corner of America, that everyone has a shot at the American dream, first with Rick Perry, then with my think tank, then with President Trump, then with the AFBI, the America First Policy Group. And so I too have a real heart for this work, and I've talked to many of you about that in your offices. That's perhaps driven by being raised in a small town by a single mom, and we didn't have much. Now, we never participated in the nutrition program, but I am fully aware and have a heart for this work and for this community that is easy to make the commitment to ensure that we are doing everything we can, that this supplemental program continues on a course of being effective and efficient. Having said that, it's also imperative to us that every taxpayer dollar that is spent in support of these programs, we fully understand that it is reaching its intended recipient, that that recipient is able to use it effectively and efficiently for true nutrition reasons, that we have a real health issue in this country. You all know this. I think 4 out of 5 children are facing obesity or close to it. The level of diabetes and chronic diseases continue to rise. So we together, and myself, if so fortunate to be confirmed, will have a major role in all of the above, ensuring that these programs are serving those who need them and doing it effectively, but also ensuring that the taxpayers are being well served, that the dollar that we take from, my electrician in Fort Worth who has his own small business and then sending it to a family in need, that dollar is being used in the best and most effective way. So that is certainly my commitment to you, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar.
As we both noted, the chairman and I, this committee has worked together, and all the members know this, on a bipartisan way to pass farm bills in the past, improve the farm safety net, stand up for conservation, nutrition, food security. Will you be a force for working with both sides of the aisle?
Thank you so much, Senator Klobuchar, for that question. And it is exceedingly important to me that we deliver for American farmers and ranchers, exceedingly. And I have already begun to lose some sleep over how to make that happen in a way that is productive in supporting your work. And I have a long history of working in a bipartisan manner. It may not be at the forefront of my bio or my resume, but I worked with many of you in the last administration on the First Step Act, which I believe was perhaps the hallmark of President Trump 1.0 in bipartisan work together. I sat in an office for many hours with Senator Durbin, Senator Grassley, Senator Booker, Senator Scott, and many others from both sides as we hammered out how to solve the criminal justice challenges that our Bureau of Prisons is facing. And I hope to bring that same skill set and perhaps knowledge base and relationships to this effort as well.
Thank you. I appreciated you mentioned animal disease as one of your lead priorities, as well as the disaster economic assistance. As you know, and you and I discussed this, since 2022, the most recent outbreak of avian flu has devastated poultry producers, spread to dairy cattle, resulted in at least 1 death. But we're starting to see increases in certain prices attributed to that. If confirmed, how will you ensure that farmers have the resources they need to combat the spread of this virus? What is your plan?
There is no doubt that what the community in whom we all work for, that community, not just America, but the entire world relies on for an abundant, safe, and secure food supply. And just learning of the devastation in Georgia, just over the last few weeks with the poultry outbreak and the depopulation there of our poultry. Of course, to your point about dairy, it's been infecting some of the dairy herds, I believe, across 16 states. There is a lot that I have to learn on this, and if confirmed, this will be, as I mentioned in my opening statement, one of the very top priorities. We are hyper-focused on finding the team right now. I'm sure they're already working. I have obviously respected the process and not gotten too involved. But I know that the current team and the future team will be working hand in hand to do everything we can on animal disease. And Senator, if I may add one more thing, my deep background working in state policy included working very closely with governor's offices and ag commissioners across this great country. In fact, in the last White House, I sort of took it upon myself, which is where I met a few of our governors who are now here, to work closely and in concert and aligned with both Republican and Democrat leaders from the state.
I really appreciate that. We have 7 minutes, so I'm going to go a little quicker
Yes,
here.
ma'am.
I will note that just yesterday, the administration announced they will halt external public health communications from the CDC on these avian flu, animal diseases, and these important announcements have helped keep producers up to date with the latest information on disease spread, health of workers. And while I know that wasn't under the USDA, I just urge you to talk to them about that. We're concerned. Biofuels, and I appreciated our discussion on that. While you served as the CEO of the Texas Public Policy Foundation, your organization was often critical on biofuels, including ethanol. And as you know, we have worked really hard to make this so we don't just have one fuel, that we have options here, including with Senator Ernst and Senator Fisher and Senator Grassley, Senator Thune, many others. What role do you believe biofuels play in our domestic energy production? How will you continue to promote the production of these fuels as Secretary?
Thank you, and I appreciate you bringing that up. It's my understanding that those reports were written over a decade ago. I haven't seen anything more recent. Texas Public Policy Foundation puts out almost 900 to 1,000 pieces of content a year. I did not author that specific piece, but to be clear, there's no doubt, coming from Texas, I was a massive defender of fossil fuels and the importance of fossil fuels in the energy independence and energy dominance narrative. Clearly, I've spoken with so many of you on both sides of the aisle on this issue. I will be a secretary for all agriculture. It is really important to me that we continue to defend and elevate and honor all sources of fuel. My former boss and current boss in his current energy dominance plan included biofuels as an important piece of his agenda. So I really look forward to continuing that.
And I know your family, based on the forms, I appreciate you getting us those forms, that your family has significant financial interest in the oil industry. Will these interests motivate decisions you make at the department, especially when they impact your family's financial holdings?
Senator, I can promise you this, and I know you and I have met a few times through the years. I've had more in-depth discussions, but not as many as I would like, hopefully a lot more in the future. But I can promise you this, anyone that has ever worked with me will tell you, even to the detriment of organizations I have run, detriment financially to my potential family, that I have never, not ever, made a decision based on financial interest, ever. And that certainly will not begin now.
Thank you. You discussed briefly with Senator Bozeman the export market. I also appreciated you mentioned that in your long-term focus on exports. And as you know, during the first Trump administration, we heard resounding calls from farmers that they want trade, not aid. Some exact words I'm remembering. They want to grow their market and not just get government payment. We've worked hard on this committee to help farmers build markets here and abroad. Senator Hoeven and I have set up a rural export center, in fact. And Ms. Rollins, how would you work with President Trump, the Office of the U.S. Trade Rep, and others within the administration to ensure that they understand the effects of potential retaliatory tariffs on American farmers? And how will you help them manage this risk? And beyond just getting extra payments to make up for it, will you be a voice to make sure people understand the importance of exports for rural America? And it's not just farming, it's also manufacturing and the like.
No, that's correct. I believe, extraordinary value that I potentially bring to this table having served in the last White House for 3 years, right alongside President Trump, I believe I may be the most well-versed in how the interagency process works of all the cabinet, of how the interagency process works, of how the discussions are handled, of what the Oval Office meetings look like, and how to ensure that at every corner that my team, that our community, that what we all represent together is at the table fighting for what we believe is necessary for these communities.
Okay, thank you. And I have some important questions for the second round here on conservation and nutrition, and I know my colleagues will be asking them as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator McConnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations on your nomination. I appreciate you coming by the office. I had a chance to tell you then that Kentucky agriculture is a little different. We have 75,000 farms, but most of them are small. We're also the #1 beef cattle state east of the Mississippi. People don't generally associate Kentucky with that. I want to echo what others here have said about trade. I went over to the trade representative on the floor of the House. We were there for the big speech and introduced myself, and I said, "Do you have anything to do?" And she basically didn't have an answer. It seems to me that trade has sort of become a word for a lot of Americans that implies exportation of jobs. In Kentucky, we think of trade as exportation of products, and it's an extremely important part of what we do. I think both of the candidates in the last election sort of shied away from this issue. As others have said, give us some hope that maybe we can get back in the trade business. We would need trade promotion authority, which we currently don't have. But I'd be interested in your thoughts further about this.
Yeah, thank you, Senator McConnell, and it was an honor to be in your office. Talk a little bit about Kentucky bourbon and a few other important things. It's the first time I've ever heard, I think, anyone say that President Trump has shied away from anything. I don't specifically have or recall anything specific about him not talking about trade, other than perhaps to your point that our country and especially our ag community is in a tough spot right now with regards to exports and moving our products out. I know that the USMCA is back up for negotiation along with other trade agreements. And here's what I am very encouraged about, Senator, and I hope it perhaps gives you some encouragement as well. In my now almost 9 years, maybe 8 years with President Trump, at the end of the day, we all know him to be the consummate deal maker. And I believe that skill and that intense focus on making deals for his people, not only for America, but for the ag community that supported him at 90% since really the very, very beginning. I think 338 counties out of 344 agriculture counties voted for him. He knows that these are the people that have been with him the longest. And I sincerely believe that if I do my job and in working with all of you to ensure that the White House and that our partners across the agencies have all of the data that they need, while at the same time we're working across the world to bring in new trade partners, to expand access for new trade products and for all, whether it's the specialty crops or the row crops or the livestock industry, I believe, as the president mentioned in his inaugural address, that we're embarking on a golden age, and I also believe this is going to be a very, very big part of that.
Okay, I want to shift to something Kentucky specific that we discussed in the office. I want to bring it up again. Back in 2020, through the appropriations process, I managed to allocate $65 million for an agricultural research service lab at the Kentucky College of Agriculture. That was 4 or 5 years ago. Nothing's happened yet. So what did happen? Well, there were a number of different regulatory tripwires that got injected into the process. And in meeting those, trying to meet those regulatory tripwires, slowed everything down. I want to see construction begin. The money is there. What can you tell me to give me hope?
We did discuss this, and again, another passion of mine that has been mentioned is my love for Texas A&M and the ag school and the research facilities. I am really excited to get knee-deep, waist-deep, neck-deep in these facilities across the country. And I know we also had discussions with some of the other senators on this committee that they have some similar concerns with some different facilities that they would like to see move a lot more quickly. Senator McConnell, I commit to you that we will immediately begin digging in on what is happening. A big part of my portfolio in the last administration was the president's deregulation agenda and understanding how certain regulations and rules hampered important projects from moving forward and opening up markets, et cetera. So I actually believe that with the right team in place and with your quick confirmation of some of those undersecretaries, that we'll be able to dig in, figure out what's happening, work with you and others from Kentucky to figure out what's going on and figure out how to move this forward.
I would just say the previous administration was big on regulations across the board. I think they all ought to be looked at in terms of the impact on the economy, and I think that's what the new administration intends to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I agree with that and look forward to working with you and others on that.
Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank you and the ranking member for your opening statements, both of you. Together, I think, capture the spirit of what this committee is supposed to be about in a Congress where we have not worked well together. And I just want to say how much I appreciate your leadership today. So the two of you, and thanks also for mentioning Chairman Stabenow, who did a great job here for a long period of time. Mr. Rollins, congratulations to you. You mentioned in your answer just now to Senator McConnell, this is actually not a question that I was going to ask, but since you mentioned him, you said we all recognize agriculture is in a tough place when it comes to exports. We do all recognize that. Could you elaborate more on that? We'd love to hear your perspective on the hole that many of us feel that we're in right now as we get ready to think about what the trade policies are going to be of this administration and of the country.
Thank you, Senator Bennett, of course, and loved our conversation about your beautiful Colorado.
Thank you. Come back anytime, or come anytime.
I would welcome that. We do spend some time there in the summers, as good Texans do, getting out of the heat, but I'll look forward to seeing you next time. In the last handful of years, we've gone from not having a trade deficit in our agricultural communities to having a $45 billion trade deficit. Of course, that has led to many challenges, including food inflation. And I know when I've heard President Trump talk about his priorities, the first is the border, which I'm guessing we'll get into at some point. The second was food inflation. And so there are many tools in our toolkit, both through USDA and expanding markets, which are all intertwined, to begin immediately to work to bring that deficit down and hopefully soon get it to zero. My commitment is
I would say, though,
yes, sir.
so that deficit we know is being caused by a strong dollar. It's being caused by competition from Brazil. It's being caused by limitations on our beef supply. It's being caused by prices that are going up. I mean, these are. I don't think these particularly are failures in trade policy. It's making it hard for us to export, which is what Senator McConnell's concern was, which I share. And I think that all of us understand, and actually, I will say, there are many ways in which I'm sympathetic to some of the trade policies that President Trump is trying to advocate for, but agriculture is already in a tough spot for those reasons, I think, largely, and we don't want it to be in a tougher spot as a result of what happens here. And I think, when you were in my office, you talked a little bit, and this is going to be the easiest question that you get, but I hope you only take 15 seconds to answer so I can go on to the next stuff,
Yes, sir.
which is, what is your responsibility as the Secretary of Agriculture to go into the Oval Office and say you haven't thought through the unintended consequences if you pursue these trade policies?
Senator, in 15 seconds, my role is to defend, to honor, to elevate our entire agriculture community in the Oval Office, around the table, through the interagency process, and to ensure that every decision that is made in the coming 4 years has that front of mind as those decisions are being made.
Okay, and I agree also with what Senator Klobuchar said, is that what we've heard from our farmers and ranchers over and over again is they want to be able to do the work. They want to be able to export. They don't want to
Right.
solve this problem by getting, aid to make up for what they should have been able to send to Asia and other kinds of places. The only growth that my farmers and ranchers can see in the foreseeable future, which is to say their lifetimes, is by growing our exports of agriculture. So I appreciate your understanding that,
I
and
agree.
we're counting on you, if you're in this job, to be that advocate. We also had the chance when you were in my office to talk a little bit about something that I've had focused on here the entire time and on this committee, which is the state of our national forests throughout the American West. As you know, and I know you know this, they're incredibly important to us, because every single community that we have, no matter how big or no matter how small, every single farm and ranch that we have is downstream from these snowpacks and downstream from